He rises, scrambles, throws, and for a split second, the whole stadium thinks, maybe, this is the night the Commanders flip the script. Then he's on the turf, clutching the same left elbow that kept him out for weeks, and the stadium's hope turns to a slow, cold silence. Jayden Daniels came back to play. He left in pain again. By the time the final whistle blew, Minnesota had a 31-0 shutout, and Washington had one more heavy question to carry into the offseason. Reuters, the story of the afternoon was ugly and immediate. Daniels, who'd missed multiple games after dislocating that left elbow, returned as announced, then saw his comeback shortened. Midway through the third quarter, a tipped pass turned into a turnover. On the return, he was walloped and landed hard on that same left side. He went to the sideline in the medical tent and did not return. The backup, Marcus Mariota, came in, but the offense never recovered. This wasn't a subtle setback. It looked on tape and in real time like the same injury that forced the earlier absence had been aggravated. Reuters. If you want the blunt scoreboard version, Minnesota steamrolled to 31 unanswered points. J.J. McCarthy managed the Vikings' offense with efficient throws and 3 touchdown passes. Minnesota's ground game added blows that kept Washington flat-footed for the whole afternoon. The Vikings left little doubt they'd learned their lessons from recent losses. They dominated possession, converted in the red zone, and turned opportunities into scoring drives. For Washington, every phase of the game felt a step behind. Reuters bosses. But there are human beats under the box score that matter more to the franchise's future. Daniels had been cleared to return this week, and the plan felt right. Bring your rookie back, let him test himself, and see where the season goes. Instead, the play that changed everything was mundane in its brutality, a shove on a pursuit, a fall, and a limb landing wrong. That's how careers and seasons get remade in the NFL. Not always on some cinematic drive, but in a single messy collision. Coaches will say we'll know more after the tests, but the visual is hard to shake. NFL.com, Mariota's relief stint didn't flip the scoreboard. He went 2 of 4 for 30 yards and an interception, a small sample that captured the Commanders' wider problems, protection issues, timing that wasn't there, and an offense that couldn't build consistent momentum. Washington finished with 3 turnovers and a stifling lack of offensive yards. The game felt less like a competitive loss and more like a franchise being checked for structural failures. When your QB is yanked off tape with his non-throwing arm compromised, the whole week ahead becomes MRI appointments and roster contingency plans. Reuters. And then there's Zach Ertz. Midway through the second half, the veteran tight end went up for a pass, was hit awkwardly in the right knee, and was carted off in tears. The visuals were heartbreaking. Early reports feared a torn ACL. The team will run scans and give a clearer diagnosis, but watching a 35-year-old veteran who returned this year on a 1-year deal get driven off the field in that state is brutal. In a season already bleeding confidence, losing a leader like Ertz stings in a way stats don't capture. ESPN.com. You can break the loss down into discrete failures, missed tackles that turned into long drives, an offense that couldn't get push or time, tape that showed breakdowns in assignments and in-the-moment communication. But there's a narrative overlay here that's harder to coach away. When a team is already on its heels, the first physical setback, a re-aggravated injury, a carted veteran, becomes more than 2 plays. It becomes a mood. And mood is contagious in a locker room. WJLA for Daniels, the stakes are simple and brutal. He's the 2024 Offensive Rookie of the Year, the franchise's project, the face of a future they were trying to build. Coming back from a dislocated elbow and getting knocked back before the game even had a chance to unfold is the kind of moment that forces careful conversations. Do you shut him down to protect a long-term asset? Do you keep rolling and risk further damage to salvage a season? Medical staff, coaches, and front office planners will spend this week walking that tightrope with the kind of cautious voices that come from people who have seen optimistic moves turn catastrophic. It's worth saying what this loss does to Washington's season in practical terms. The team fell to 3-10, and that streak of losses extended to 8 straight. The playoffs are clearly out of reach. Reality now is about salvage, evaluation, and protecting assets for next year. That changes everything from play calling to practice reps. Backups get looks, Young players see more snaps, and the front office starts counting medical windows more than final drives. When a season shifts from contend to rebuild quietly, the tone of every decision changes with it. The Washington Post. But human beings react. Teams can take catastrophe and turn it into clarity. There is a pathway forward that's ugly but honest. Evaluate clearly who the real roster pieces are, give the young guys real reps, and resist the urge to manufacture narratives that don't match the tape. For Daniels specifically, this week will be about tests and guarded optimism, or, if the diagnosis is worse, an immediate pivot to protecting the franchise's most valuable asset. For Ertz, the weeks ahead will be a crash course in recovery plans and veteran support. In both cases, how the organization communicates will matter nearly as much as any MRI. Yahoo Theitau. If you're a fan, the pain is immediate and personal. You watched a bright moment get taken away, and you worry for the player more than the record. If you're inside the building, the work starts immediately. Meetings, medical updates, tape reviews, and a shift in priorities. The NFL is a machine that turns setbacks into new opportunities, but it's also unforgiving in its pace. There's no time to grieve the season. The calendar demands planning for what comes next. Reuters. This afternoon's film will be studied not for dramatic calls or X's and O's nuance alone, but for two images. Jayden Daniels dropped to the turf and Zach Ertz carted off with a towel over his head. Those are the frames that stick, the ones teammates will remember and use as motivation or as caution. The Commanders now face the uncomfortable job of turning that sting into a reset. The league moves fast. The only question is whether Washington moves faster. Reuters right now, hope is procedural. Tests, timelines, medical opinions. Emotionally, it's messier. A veteran in tears, a rookie taken off again, a roster forced to confront its limits. Practically, the team will regroup, give reps to backups, and the front office will have to weigh long-term player protection against the short-term hunger to win. Either way, this game rewires the Commanders' immediate future. You can't sugarcoat it. Today was one of those Sundays that proves how fragile an NFL season is. For Washington, the path forward starts with truth-telling, smart medicine, and the kind of stubborn, small-step work that builds anything worthwhile. For Jayden Daniels and Zach Ertz, it's about doctors, reports, and recovery plans. For the fans, it's about patience and hope shaped now by hard information rather than wishful thinking. The league won't stop. Neither should the care for the players who make it all possible. Reuters. Jayden Daniels exited Washington's 31-0 loss to the Minnesota Vikings after re-aggravating his previously dislocated left elbow and did not return. Backup Marcus Mariota finished the game for the Commanders. Reuters Daniels, who had just come back from the elbow injury that cost him multiple games, completed 9 of 20 passes for 78 yards and threw an interception before leaving after being shoved to the ground while trying to chase a turnover. Reuters. The blow to Washington's day didn't stop there. Veteran tight end Zach Ertz suffered a severe right knee injury on a low hit while attempting a catch, was carted off in tears, and early reports raised concern about a possible torn ACL. ESPN.com, Minnesota dominated from start to finish. J.J. McCarthy completed efficient drives and the Vikings controlled possession throughout, as Washington's offense struggled to generate momentum amid the turnovers and the injury disruptions. Washington's loss dropped the club deeper into a long skid and left the Commanders facing serious health and roster questions heading into the final stretch. The Washington Post, the immediate outlook. Washington will evaluate Daniels' elbow and Ertz's knee with imaging and medical updates expected soon. The franchise now must prepare short-term game plans without its starter and likely without its veteran tight end while assessing longer-term recovery timelines. Reuters.